Hello everyone and welcome to the LSI F1 finale, season 13. Who is going to be champion, Nifajan or Heisler, McLaren or Mercedes? Well, Mercedes have got the team's championship, but not the drivers. That is going to be here for the final race. There is a 13-point difference in the championship. It's going to be a close one. It's going to be a tough one. We're currently quite a way through qualifying, and here at the final stages, what are we going to get? There's potential for rain at the beginning of the race later on, but we will get confirmation on what that will look like at a later point. Tyus Korsman makes his return back to LSI, reserving for Haas. They are taking a nice early lead in qualifying here, with Tysi getting P2 just ahead of his fellow countryman. I say that, actually, Pursoon is racing under the Belgian flag in P3, last race winner. Nifajan P4, Zingy right now as we watch on board P5, looking to try and get themselves a bit further up on the grid if they possibly can. As they do come out on track, there's a few people in the way. I was going to say, as they do come out on track, as they start their lap, there's a few people in the way, as there's a lot of cars going very, very late out to try and get this track evolution. But I think we're going to get a few cars getting in the way of one another, whether they like it or not. That is a very, very late traffic rush coming out of the pit lane there. We actually see that is Peanuts and one of the racing, that would be Nabil, who hasn't been able to take part in this session, already out. Zingy continuing on their lap at the moment, going through Copse Corner. And we'll see them go through Maggots and Beckett's. They go slightly wide on the entry of Copse, and they go slightly low from the exit. So they've got a bit more time to gain there, but this is going to be their final attempt in qualifying here. They'll go over the sector line. DRS will be available, and it's going to be a pretty much borderline lap time. So they're going to need to find just that little bit more to get ahead of Nifo, and then a little bit more ahead of that to get ahead, or to try and fight with Tysi and Pursoon regarding their lap time being possible to catch up to the likes of Tyus Korsman. I don't quite know. Final chicane here for Zingy in Silverstone. What's it going to be? Across the line, and it will be a P4 in the end. They will not be able to get ahead of Pursoon. That will be that. They're not going to be happy with that slight impeding moment, but it is what it is. They've got to deal with it now. We've got Tom Rob coming across the line. We've got a lot of traffic as we come into the final sections. We've got JJ going straight into the pit lane, and we've got Heisler and Nifo setting their final laps of this session. JJ leaves the session, unfortunately, having some sort of issue. I don't know if we're going to be able to get on top of that. I don't think we will. But yeah, we'll see. Hopefully they can get back into this race. Otherwise they could find themselves in a bit of trouble regarding starting the Grand Prix. But here it is for the final moments in qualifying. We have, I believe, it's not Pursoon on the lap first, is it? I believe it actually might be. It's going to be Pursoon setting their lap next, and we'll go over the sector line to see what they're going to do. And they've gone off the circuit, and it's going to be invalid. Oh no, what a shame. What a shame indeed for Pursoon there. We will then go on board with Tom Rob, who will be completing their final qualifying session of the F1 season. They are serving a tyre penalty right now. One set of tyres only, but unfortunately they do invalidate as well. It is now towards the McLaren car of Heisler. This is the underdog who is going to be looking to try and get those top spots to give themselves the best chance of winning this championship here in the final round, round 12, into turn 15, I think it is, Stowe Corner, and then into the club chicane. What's it gonna be as they make their way through, avoiding the curb on the inside? We're getting so close to the next one, but the final corner, it's gonna be a P2, a 26.011 for Heisler. What will it be for Nifo? Charlie to P6 as Tyus Korsman improves, and it's going to be the championship contender coming through. They will not improve. That is going to be qualifying done. Peanuts is yet to finish this session. They will get one more lap in, and that will be qualifying for the British Grand Prix, as that is a phenomenal lap right there from Tyus Korsman. Tysi also dumping down Heichler right at the end there. And that's Peanuts to P5, beating the Scotsman. Absolutely awesome right there from the Swedish driver. But Tyus Korsman takes pole position, the 25.520, ahead of a 0.9 from Ticey. A very good effort from Ticey and Heichler. Ticey, the only other car to end up getting into the 25s right there. Now, currently, I will give you a bit of an update. If Heichler finishes P1 with a fastest lap and Nifo finishes P6, Nifo does win. No matter what. P8, P2 fastest lap, Nifo still wins. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to go through that a little bit later on when we have a moment to. But that is the race director. And we will, we'll see you in a bit. It's where it counts. Ready? Hold. Go! Who's going to get it into turn 1? We're away in the wet conditions. The inside line is Ticey's. And P1, could it be? No, there's contact with Tyus Korsman. Bassoon's going to get involved. That's going to be Ticey all the way to the back in the early stages as Korsman takes an early lead. Heichler looking to go side by side and take P2 off of Bassoon. And I think they've got it. They surely have the advantage on the inside line. A brilliant, brilliant job right there from the McLaren to get themselves to P2 immediately. That's Peanuts in P4 ahead of Zingy, ahead of Charlie, who's got ahead of their teammate right there. There's almost contact with Zingy, and the teammate will come back through if they can. They're going to look for the long way round. That's going to be Zingy to the inside of Peanuts, and it's side by side almost with the McLaren and the Alpine just in front of these guys. Is it really going to go side by side through Cop's Corner with Nifo and Charlie? The inside line is Charlie's, the outside line is Nifo's. They're going to go for the move, but they're going to go off the circuit on exit. And it's a very, very tight between the two. Joko Willis down to P8. That's Nabil with a technical difficulty, unfortunately, in P9. Tom Rod, P10. JJ having some sort of, I don't know, they didn't actually have an issue. It was in qualifying. That is damage to Ticey's car, and I'm not entirely sure what went on with them there. That's going to be the Alpine sending it to the inside line, and I don't think the McLaren is going to have anything to say about that one, but they will, as they'll come back into the chicane. As we're about to start lap 2, they still want to be ahead, but there is going to be the advantage and the key to P2 for Bassoon. Zingy is going to find the key. He's going to steal the key for P2. P3, I should say. Is he going to be able to get there? No, he didn't quite pick up that key. He does look to the inside line on turn 1. It's going to be difficult, and now we don't quite know how long this rain is going to last and what kind of setups these guys are running. I believe it's going to be about just over halfway into this Grand Prix, quite possibly. So it could be that we've got a few of these cars on heavy or on intermediate wet setups. We could see a few cars on dry setups in conditions, as you can see on your screen right now. I would not be surprised if we have a few cars in dry condition setups. That will bring them into it later on if they do so. Zingy very close to the back of that McLaren at this stage of the race. They want to have a look, but they're not quite there. It's so difficult to make an overtake attempt in these conditions, let alone without DRS that will not be available in these wet conditions either. That is a very, very difficult situation to be in. We've got Peanuts, who is right behind in a phenomenal position, but they've got two Mercedes cars, two teammates right behind, being very fierce and chasing. Bassoon 0.9 seconds at the moment, right behind Tyus Korsman is going to be Zingy attempting the overtake here on Heichler, looking to make progress if they can do so. That inside line should be theirs, but they're going to go leave the space and they'll go side by side into the chicane as Zingy did last time around with Bassoon. This time Zingy gets ahead and it's not going to be possible for that McLaren to stay there. Would we see a pit stop onto an intermediate tyre? I don't quite know. We don't quite know how long this rain is going to last, but I believe it's going to be just after the halfway point. So I would expect to see a few cars attempting to go as long as possible on these tyres. Could that possibly bring a possible puncture situation into this? I don't quite know. Now, I'm going to leave you with that graphic. We see all these cars running very closely together at this stage. I'm just going to have to quickly sort something out. We'll be right back. We're back, and it looks like the order stays the same. We currently have Korsman holding that gap, maintaining it nicely. Pursoon trying their best to catch up a little bit more if they can do so. Zingy putting the pressure on the Alpine in turn. Heichler holding on to the back of the Red Bull in front. Peanuts, they've got a bit of a gap to the cars ahead. They've got two cars very close behind, but they are doing absolutely everything that they need to at this stage, and that is the top 7 in a train. Tom Robb a little bit further behind with Jerko Willis not too far away from them. Nabil having technical difficulties and unfortunately not in this Grand Prix. JJ, I'm not entirely sure what happened with their race, but then pit stops were made for Ticey after they received damage due to the incident at the beginning of this Grand Prix. Now, I do want to apologise to everyone. I don't know if you can see it or not, but there are stutters. There is Zingy to the inside line of Pursoon. Would they get the traction on the exit? The outside line is going to be more beneficial. Pursoon will hold it for now, but they go off the circuit as they open up the steering, and that will be a phenomenal move right there from Zingy. It was a bit two-parted, but the move is the move, and he got the job done. As I was saying, I do apologise for the stutters that you may be seeing. It's not internet. It's just the way the game is after these recent updates. So we're just going to have to make do with it in this final race and hope that no one else gets negatively affected in a severe way. Zingy's now P2. As those guys just battled, that does mean that the gap is a little bit bigger between the Scotsman and Highest Korsman in P1, but I'm sure they're going to look to try and change that either way. Will Korsman try and push a little bit more now he sees cars switching behind, or is Zingy going to try and push even harder? I don't quite know, but Pursoon is still very close to the back of this Red Bull car. We've got Nifo looking to try and make a move possibly. I thought they were getting super close, but not quite having the momentum to do such a thing, as that the Swedish driver still holds on to DRS range in theory, although DRS is still not available, of course, just yet at this stage of the Grand Prix. When will it be available? If it will be available, I don't quite know, but we do believe it will be around about, let's say, lap 18, lap 20. Let's say about that. Unless it's already stopped raining, but it still seems to be just very, very light. Not really wet enough for full wets, but not dry enough for slick tyres. It is not really into conditions, it seems, though. Seems either. It's just kind of very, very in the middle at the moment. Very difficult for Nifo as he's going to try and make a move after a while. It's going to be lap 5 to the inside of the Aston. The Aston doesn't fight it too hard into turn 6. They exit 7 and go through 8, as that is going to be the Mercedes car now to P5 and right behind their championship rival. And they will be looking to try and make sure that they finish as high as possible. They only need to finish 6th in this race in order to win the championship. They have the most wins in the championship out of the two contenders, so they would win if they were to score equal points, of course, to their rival. Now, as long as they finish in 6th place, there is no contest. Nifo will be the champion of season 13. Will that happen? I don't quite know. P8 for Nifo. If Heichler was to get P2 in the fastest lap, then they wouldn't. There's a big mistake right there for the Dutchman. There's also a mistake there for Peanuts, as Charlie will try and have a go through, as their teammate did on the lap previous, but it did not happen, and they're going to continue as they are, but they are also going to continue 1.6 seconds away from the field up ahead. They've got a bit of work to do. Currently, it's just making it a little bit more difficult for Nifo to make this what they need to make it. Heichler still needs to try and win this Grand Prix, if that is the case, of course. If Heichler finishes P2 of the fastest lap, Nifo needs to finish P9 for Heichler to win this Grand Prix. If he finishes P3 with the fastest lap, it is a P10 for Nifo, and Heichler would be able to win that championship. That's how difficult it is for the McLaren car right now. Still battling is Peanuts and Charlie on the exit. Charlie's going to look for the inside line, but they can't quite find it as that Swedish car is just a little bit too wide, and they've done a massive effort to stay ahead. A very good job indeed from the runner-up from F1.5 last season, making the move and making the switch to no racing line. Mega progress in the recent races. They haven't had the best races around this circuit itself in previous seasons, of course, but they're definitely proving everyone wrong since then by being in this fight. Yes, a 2.3 seconds gap is between the top train and these guys, but they do have an ability to catch up a little bit later on. Would it be possible that they are currently on dry setups and these guys have got a bit more of an adapted setup? I don't quite know, but we will find out in due course, of course. And Tyus Korsman is almost 1 second ahead, only 9/10 now, as he does manage to do some work, whether that is just management from Tyus Korsman or it is the good efforts of the Red Bull. The gap is still closed down. Pursoon is following on, and Heichler is right in the tracks as well. This is a very big day for Heichler. They need to try and just score as best as they possibly can. Effectively, they have to finish P3. That's where they have to finish. At least finish P3 to give themselves a chance in this Grand Prix. And if they can get anything better, that is brilliant. Nifo in the same scenario, P6 or anything better. That is brilliant. It's looking like it will go to Nifojan on lap 7 out of 26, but we've still got just under 20 laps to go of this Grand Prix. Now in these wet conditions, as it's super difficult to overtake, it does mean that it's very difficult to concentrate. You have to pay attention at all times. Any little mistake could cost you a lot. The gaps are a lot bigger if you do make those mistakes, of course. As you can see, the cars are swerving all over the place on the exits. It's so difficult to manage, but they're doing a brilliant job as it stands. The hearts must be racing between the championship contenders as well. I'm as nervous enough as I'm not even in the battle. Yeah, I don't know. I'm getting all my words muddled up, but this man right now, he's got a lot of pressure. He's got a lot less to lose than the Mercedes behind him, but he does have a big job to do. A big job to do is going to be Zingy, who wants to try and go on a bit of an attack here for the P1 position, but Korsman maintains it and does a very good job in doing so. And I think they should be able to continue that effort. That being said, the gap is probably not as big as they would like it to be at this stage. Lap 8 out of 26. Zingy almost drifting through Copse Corner as we get Pursoon going very wide on exit, whether that be intentional or not. Zingy scrubbing the tyres on entry through Maggots and Beckett's out through Chapel, trying to get the better traction, but will it be possible? Using the energy to catch up a little bit to Korsman, but they move to the left-hand side of the circuit, and nothing will come of it in the end. No battles will happen behind, as they are all a little bit too far away from one another. Nifo, Peanuts, Charlie, of course, fairly close together. Then we do have Tom Robb, followed by Jericho Willis, followed by Ticey, who has got their wing repaired, I do believe, and hopefully can be back in this race later on if possible. With the weather changes, Nabil disconnecting and JJ looking to try and overtake the disconnected car to make that a P11 for sure in this race, although it would be a P11 regardless because of the disconnected car. that would be classed as DS seed at the end of this Grand Prix. It's going to be a switch up possibly for the race lead as Zingy wants to have a go here on Tyus Korsman, who goes defensive to the inside, but they open up and it will allow the Scotsman to find that line that they were looking for. Now to the outside line. Will they have the traction on the exit ahead of the Haas? They might just do so, and they do, but now it's once again the inside line available for Korsman, and they are going to have the advantage this time. There aren't going to be any questions asked. It's going to be safer for Zingy to back off, but they immediately come back through. Korsman may have even gone off the circuit there. They would have got a warning for that one. No real problems for that, but Zingy, he really gave it his best efforts. It didn't quite work out. Now he's even closer than he was last lap, and I think they're definitely going to look for the inside line if they can possibly do so. That Haas, a little bit too quick in a straight line, however, as they power away on the battery. A brilliant defense right there from Korsman, just holding on. That, yeah, awesome effort right there from the American team car, as that we don't really get to see too often from permanent drivers in the LSI F1 tit. They've done a brilliant job to hold on for now. Can they convert this into a race victory? Zingy, once again very close. Would they send it to the inside line? Don't think it's really worth it. Not at this stage. They've used a lot of battery now. It's going to be Korsman going defensive as they try and hold on and make sure that Zingy is bunched up, so when they get onto the exit they can power out and allow everybody behind to fight and maybe create a gap for themselves. It's going to be a little look to the inside for Heichler. Pursoon will not be phased and will stay where they are for now. Looking at the weather, we are staying as we are with the conditions and the rate of rain. Are we going to see anybody dive into the pit lane? Lap 10 out of 26. These tyres aren't as good as they used to be in previous games for lifespan. Sure, they can go a long way, but the pace advantage that you could get by pitting earlier could be pretty significant. Will anything change? I don't quite know, but we could see maybe someone a little bit further behind go for that early stop, and yeah, things can change in this Grand Prix. I've said that like 12 times now, but it could be very possible. We've got Zingy once again possibly having a go, this time just getting so close to the back of Korsman but not actually making a move. This time an opportunity has arisen and Zingy will look for the inside to make it the inside line, and they've got the job done. Korsman will not be able to get there on the exit, and for now that will be P1 to the Red Bull. Will P2 be conceded as well? No, not yet, but maybe into turn 3, into 4. The chicane is going to be tight. Korsman's going to have to surely go on the offensive, but no, Pursoon doesn't try to attack. It's all of a sudden bunched up massively as Zingy is ahead. Pursoon trying to have a look at possibly making that move out of the Haas, but Heichler, not expecting the battling going on, made a bit of contact. Hopefully that's not damage for the Dutchman. It's going to be Pursoon to the inside line. Korsman has to leave the space. It's as tight as it's going to get. A brilliant effort now to the outside. Will they get the traction? Pursoon? No, a big moment, and that will be the move defended by Korsman, who stays in P2 but is now 6/10 behind the Scotsman, who might be able to hold on this lap quite nicely unless they make a mistake, unless Korsman can find some good pace. They will hold on to that position. The DRS is not available, of course, so the gap has really got to be nice and close for you to get an advantage. The difference in driving between these cars that they have to do in these conditions is absolutely immense. Zingy very aggressive with that car on the controller. They're doing their best with the tools that they have, and Korsman exactly the same. It's going to be Pursoon to the outside, maybe the inside, but it's just a little bit too confusing to decide. We had Korsman locking the rears on entry into club, and that was a brilliant effort. That is going to be Peanuts and Charlie making the move on Nifojan, as Peanuts will get stay to P7, I should say, and Charlie will make that move. The two Mercedes switch positions. All of a sudden Nifo's down in P7. This is currently not enough to secure the championship, regardless of where they finish, of where Heichler finishes. but they're not too far away from it, that is for sure, of course. Now, Charlie is going to try and hold on to this position themselves. Would they be able to get their teammate ahead of that Aston Martin? Is that Aston Martin going to go on the attack once again and maybe try and have a look at getting ahead of both Mercedes this time? I don't quite know. The Scotsman leads the way. They have the call on the strategy. We're still seeing a similar wet weather condition. It's not really changed too much at the moment. What has changed is the gap between Pursoon and Heichler. That is a plus 1 second gap. Heichler needs to find a bit more if they want to continue putting the pressure on, as I thought that was Korsman losing the car, but it just shows how aggressive these guys have to drive these cars in the wet conditions, how crazy it makes everything look, the suspension going absolutely everywhere. I have to respect them. It's not easy, it's not natural, but they get the job done. And they're going quickly. It's going to be pit stops for Zingy and Tyres Korsman, not for Pursoon. And Heichler is also following in. Is that the right call? I think it's not going to be so for Pursoon, as these tyres are going to be so old. We're going to get Charlie, Nifo, and Peanuts all staying out, which I'm very interested to see. I'm surprised they wouldn't have tried to follow on, maybe just react, because I think that is the more beneficial strategy to do so. Zingy's now going to be pitting onto a fresh set of inters, and these guys ahead are going to, I assume, attempt to stay out until the dry conditions kick in. But with the advantage that these tyres will have, it's going to be pretty difficult to manage. They are going to have to make a few overtakes in at the same time as well. They're going to get Jericho Willis right behind them, who is on those older tyres, but they are still, of course, in the battle. Tycee, in the meantime, trying to go as far as they can on this tyre to get themselves back in the race as best as possible, and maybe make a pit stop later on. If they could make the right corner set of slicks, it would give themselves a very good chance in this Grand Prix. Pursoon 6.6 seconds ahead, of course, of the Mercedes cars, who have both got ahead of Peanuts in the end. We look at the gaps to the leader, and that is 20.9 seconds here for Zingy, who has just pit the net race leader from earlier on. Of course, Tom Robb, in the meantime, not Tom Robb, JJ, has set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix with also a fresh set of tyres. A little bit earlier on, they did make their pit stop, of course. But now we do see Pursoon staying out. That is the call. That's what they're looking for. Charlie stays out. It's going to be Peanuts and Nifo going into the pit lane immediately, trying to cover things off. They've got to slow down enough for this pit lane. It's very difficult with the slightly different rule set that they have here in Silverstone. Tom Robb's P5. Zingy is currently on his own, as Tyres Korsman has had an issue. I did not see this. I don't know what's happened, but they haven't got damage. They're going to go straight back into the pit lane. I don't know what's happened to Tyres Korsman. No damage. It just looks like they've had some sort of problem. That's Peanuts and Nifo in the pit lane. They will leave the pit lane. Korsman retires in the pit lane. They've given up after some sort of problem. Lap 14 out of 26. They got a long way to go. So that's a very early retirement, but they've done it now, and that will mean that Pursoon is going to be having maybe an easier chance of being nice and close to Zingy later on. Zingy and Heichler are now 3.4 seconds away from one another, which is absolutely mental. Zingy now leads the Grand Prix by a definite 3.4 seconds ahead of Heichler. Of course, Zingy does have to try and get past Tom Robb, who is on a very different strategy. It's not going to be easy to do so, but we'll see how that one goes. We're going to get Peanuts and Nifo staying where they are, or staying close to one another, I should say. P7 and 8 for them. Jericho Willis 4 seconds up the road at this stage. Retiring that car, of course, does mean that Heichler will be brought into that P3 spot, which would give them a fighting chance at this championship. Was something to happen to Nifojan this race, they would have to finish P10 or lower for something to really change. And of course, with now only 10 cars in this race, they would effectively have to finish either last or DNF from this Grand Prix. So it's still a big ask right here. That is JJ getting ahead of Nabil. Pursoon is once again staying out and doing their best, but these tyres are treacherous, as you can see. They're all over the place. They're still praying that they can make it to the end, but those tyres are done. They are very much done so. and they go off circuit big time? Are they still going to try and hold on with the gap that they have? I don't quite know. I think they will. There is still a decent gap behind. We've got Zingy catching up to Tom Robb. That's the gap to the leaders. 13 seconds they got to find. It's going to be Zingy to the inside line as Tom Robb goes slightly defensive, but Zingy will be assertive with the grip that they've got available as well. It's not really going to be a contest. And I will quickly once again say I do apologise for these lag issues. They're absolutely tragic. It's really frustrating to watch, but we just have to go through it as it is the final race of the season. Zingy has made that a P3 now, and Heichler will be catching up very, very shortly. Bassoon stays out, Charlie stays out. They're going in for the long run. Zingy's 5 seconds away. They're doing their best here with the fastest lap to prove that they're pushing that car all the way. Just to confirm, Korsman having technical difficulties there. That put them out the race. That caused their issues. They were going through Maggots and Beckett's and encountered a pretty big issue on entry. And yeah, that did mean it was the end of their Grand Prix. They weren't willing to carry on, so that's absolutely fair enough. It does mean that, of course, with the disconnected car from the bill, everybody, as long as they finish this Grand Prix, will be scoring at least 1 point. Heichler making the move ahead of Tom Robb, who, of course, also is attempting to not make a pit stop here. And we've got Peanuts and Nifo, P6 and P7, without Tom Robb, Charlie and Bassoon making pit stops. This does make it quite nice here for Nifo-Jan, although, of course, Heichler is now looking to be in a somewhat comfortable P2 position. And for that to go Heichler's way, Nifo would have to finish P9 if Heichler was to get the fastest lap, that is, of course. As we get to the final stages of the race, I will do some calculations to see what's going to happen. That is going to be Charlie into the pit lane with a puncture. And is it going to be Bassoon as well in the pit lane with a puncture? They're travelling fairly slowly. Was it Tom Robb as well having an issue? I don't quite know. Tom Robb, yes, is having an issue as well. No, they're not. So I don't know if Bassoon had one. But Charlie, a big issue, a big puncture. And that is going to be a severe problem. But they're going to go straight to the soft tyre and try and take it to the end. It's wet conditions. There's contact with the wall on exit for the Alpine car as they're slipping all over the place, giving it their best shot, but it's just not worked out and it's just no good. Absolutely amazing effort to do so, but tragic to see Charlie with a puncture. They're now back out on track, back on the set of inters, and they're gonna likely get immediately ahead of Bassoon and quite possibly ahead of Ticey, who's on that older tyre, of course, as well. So everything to play for here for Charlie. Bassoon is doing their best. It's drying up. It is drying up. It's slowly getting drier. If they can just stay out a little bit longer, I don't know if they'd have the advantage over Zingy. They've lost out the pit window right now. If you look at the gap to the leader, 22 seconds. It is a long pit lane. It's about 30 seconds. So they've got about 8 seconds that they can try and lose and still be comfortable in competing for this race result. But their tyres are ice cold. That is the wet conditions done. Will we see Zingy in the pit lane? We will not. Right now, as you see on your screen, that is going to be a much much wetter visual for these drivers. We cannot see the wet conditions. All we can see currently is a dry circuit from a spectator's perspective. But if you look on our onboard, they will have a much wetter circuit. But of course, it is changing, it is evolving, and it is becoming more beneficial here for the softer compound of tyre. And Pursoon is suddenly going to start to warm up. They're still wobbling all over the place. I want to have a look at the gap to the leader. That would still be Pursoon on a slight advantage, but of course their tyres are going to be a little bit older, and it's going to make it a little bit more difficult. It's going to be Charlie and Pursoon into the pit lane. I don't know why Charlie's got a penalty. Did they speed on entry earlier on? I think they must have done so with that puncture, I guess. They put on a set of soft tyres, and they got again with Ticey going for the gamble on the medium tyre. Could Ticey be back into this race after everything that's happened? Will Pursoon start to gain ground on the cars ahead? It's very close, but I think they're still losing out, and Zingy, Heichler, Niffo and Peanuts still have the advantage in this Grand Prix, but it won't be for too much longer. Their tyres, however, towards the final laps will be absolutely epic. Regardless of the championship, this race strategy-wise is an absolute masterclass banger kind of race that we're looking for here. Who's going to get the advantage? I don't know. Right now, Zingy has the advantage because he is the leader of the Grand Prix. 5.3 seconds. A really good effort right now here for Heichler in the McLaren. Niffo a little further away, currently sitting in that P3 spot. They just need to try and keep it cool. But they are going to have to make a pit stop at some point in this Grand Prix, I am sure. Pursoon, are they making any progress on the cars ahead? It doesn't really look like they're doing that much. I want to look at the gap to the leader. 26 seconds. No, that is now another 2 seconds lost. So they've still got more work to do to start gaining. They're going oh so slowly through these corners. That's another time penalty here, it looks like, for Charlie. This time it's going to be a track limit penalty. We'll get you an update on those track limits. It's 3 seconds for Charlie, 3 seconds for Pursoon, 9 seconds for Tom Robb, and of course Nabil is a disconnected car in this Grand Prix. 11.3. As Pursoon needs to find a bit more. That's Charlie retiring in the pit lane. That is a voluntary retirement, as they've given up on the closing laps of this Grand Prix. They're not happy with their time penalty, and that is that. It's a shame, but it is what it is. The final moments here, lap 19 out of 26. Pursoon is the one to watch. Will Zingy dive into the pit lane? They will not do so. They will continue. They will continue in P1, and they're hoping that these tyres will make it to the end. Now, as the circuit is a lot drier, they will start to wear more, overheat more, and it does mean that these guys could risk some sort of puncture towards the end, which would all of a sudden possibly bring Pursoon into winning this Grand Prix. Pursoon, of course, does have that time penalty, though, so they've got to make sure that they keep that in mind. Zingy on a controller wouldn't have such an advantage for tyre wear. They've got to consider that as well with Tom Robb, although they have made their pit stop. Now the Scotsman looking to try and take another win this season, their first win in a while. They were looking for it in Belgium, they were looking for it in Hungary, they were confident, but it didn't quite come around in either. They got P2 in both of those races. At the moment, they're 6 seconds ahead of repeating that again. They are doing a phenomenal job. We've got Niffo and Peanuts continuing to fight. Peanuts putting on an awesome show, putting that pressure on Nifojan, who goes over track limits here at turn 9. They're going to get a warning for that one by the game, and they've got to be careful that it doesn't happen too much more, otherwise they'll lose a position basically when they cross the line to Peanuts, who currently doesn't have a penalty themselves. That would be very difficult to take. And now, as you look at this, 12 seconds 12 seconds and 27.7 seconds. It looks like Zingy could actually make a pit stop and still come out ahead of Pursoon here. I think we could see a pit stop here from Zingy very soon. That is a mistake from Tom Robb. Unfortunately, it's going to be Nifo into the pit lane with a puncture. With a puncture, surely. Is that a puncture? I don't know. It's not. Unless it's just a tyre bug. It looks like the car's leaning as they go through the pit lane, but no, it's not a puncture, but it is a pit stop as they're not willing to go any longer, and I think they're convinced that they can still finish in a decent position here, and maybe convinced that Peanuts, Heichler and Zingy will have to go into the pit lane at some point within the next couple of laps. According to where Pursoon is, they can definitely do that if you are the Scotsman here in the Red Bull. Are they going to do it? It still doesn't look like they're going to. They're trying to emulate David Coulthard, not in a McLaren, but by winning in a Red Bull. That would be very fitting indeed, but it's not quite going to be so simple. Lap 21 out of 26. Still, so little yet so long in this Grand Prix to go. And these intermediate condition tyres are not looking the best that they've been, I will be honest with you. And with that lack of battery from Zingy, it looks like they will be making that call to come into the pit lane. Currently, as it stands, Zingy not going into the pit lane trying to hold on. Regardless, with Nifo sitting in P5, 10 seconds ahead of Tom Robb, who has a time penalty as well, it looks like it will be going Nifojan's way for the title. 22 out of 26, and this is honestly impressing me beyond belief that these guys are continuing on these tyres. Of course, Peanuts has 2-lap advantage compared to Zingy and Heichler, so did Nifo, but they just weren't confident in that tyre lasting to the end of the Grand Prix. Would Nifo have a look at going for the fastest lap at this stage? I think they definitely can do so. The freshest tyres out of the entire grid at the moment. Across the line, and they will finish their outlap of this tyre. We come to the other contender in the championship, who currently is doing an awesome job. It didn't quite work on the pit stop phase. They weren't able to hold on to Zingy. They obviously managed to get ahead of Pursoon due to the risky strategy call that Pursoon chose. That's Tyson with the fastest lap on a medium tyre in the meantime. But right now, it's all eyes on the race leader, who is going to be the one to make the call for the top 3 on whether they go into the pit lane, of course. Are they going to be going full pelt, or are they going to be trying to save those tyres a bit more? I think they will be trying to save them and go to the end. As you can see, that is JJ and Nabil currently staying out, and the fact that Nabil's AI car is currently out on 20-lap-old intermediate tyres just shows that the game is suggesting that you stay out, and we just can't really see it. There must be some sort of graphic error, surely, or maybe it's just that they're confident that they can stay out on this tyre and they're good to go to the end of the Grand Prix. Pursoon is now balancing that 12-second gap to the cars ahead, and if we look at the gap between Zingy and the rest of the cars, it is showing that Pursoon is now making a bit of a gain, although losing the rear end. They have gained about a second or so until they lost a bit of a gap right there just after making that mistake, and it is going to be a fastest lap here for Nifo to try and claim that, which is quite important. It is quite important because currently with the calculations that I've got, it calculates the fact that we will see Heichler getting the fastest lap, but that will not be the case if Nifo has it. DRS is available, and that will possibly call the Scotsman into the pit lane, as that message has been displayed. In the meantime, Tyson has finally made the move ahead of their teammate after a brilliant effort, and those tyres will be to their advantage, as these mediums are only going to get quicker compared to the soft tyre compound. Jericho Willis held on for a while, but Tyson, since losing them at the start of this Grand Prix with no safety car, they stayed in it, and they're currently sitting in that P7 position, looking to try and score 6 points for their final race in the championship. Zingy isn't going into the pit lane, and as I said, of course, the DRS notification was on our screen. It still makes sense that these guys stay out at this late stage of the Grand Prix. They're really risking it. Zingy's trying their best to hold on. They want this victory so badly. They're going as fast as they possibly can. I'll be honest, they're not actually going that slow at all. DRS is going to be available for Zingy, actually, as the lap car of JJ, or upcoming lap car of JJ, is just ahead. DRS did not get enabled for Zingy, just a little bit too far away in the end, but they will possibly have a go at making it work later on, as JJ is on that soft tyre looking for another fastest lap attempt. I see another fastest lap for Nifo in the meantime, P5. That is going to be JJ, allowing the race leader to go through, as JJ is going to sit behind for now, get those tyres up to temperature, and then probably retake that position, because that intermediate tyre is just not going to be as quick as that soft tyre. Hopefully they don't go for the overtake mid-corner, but they do, which is slightly frustrating for the Scotsman, but they seem to manage it quite nicely. And with DRS for Zingy, I don't think they're really going to be minding that too much, as they'll be able to maintain that gap ahead of the McLaren behind. That is Heichler, of course, sitting in P2. It's been a long race so far, and it's still very, very tense here for the top three. They're doing their best to hold on. That is Zingy, Heichler, Peanuts, all looking for a brilliant podium to finish off this season. Will it be possible, though? I don't quite know. And still, Pursoon is not able to catch up. Currently sitting in P4, and just being out on that cold circuit with those tyres just seemed to drop every bit of performance out of them, and they've never really found it back on the track, unfortunately. Nifo also, or in the meantime, because of that quite possibly, has been able to catch up nicely, and the Mercedes car is 6 seconds away. With a time penalty to Pursoon as well of 6 seconds, they've only got a matter of tenths to try and catch, and they will be a matter of a tenth to catch, and they will be ahead and into P4 ahead of Pursoon. Jericho with another time penalty at this stage of the Grand Prix, but holding on to their teammate quite nicely. In the meantime, it is going to be the Scotsman still leading as we get to the penultimate lap of the Grand Prix. Zingy has got one more lap to do after this one. It's not going to be easy. Now, Ticey did just take away the fastest lap from Nifo, but Nifo isn't going to mind. They just need to make sure that it's not to their championship rival by any means, and they will be good to go. Currently sitting in P6 and looking to get that position over Pursoon, maybe on track if they really find the performance. Zingy starts the final lap, and it's still all eyes on this man. Will they be able to take it? They're on the interslick tyre. They've got Heichler in exactly the same position. 2 laps fresher as Peanuts, but still in a risky situation to try and make it to the end of this Grand Prix. Will it be possible? I think it very much will so. You can see those tyres are completely finished. They're completely bowled on the left-hand side and graining on the right. It's not easy at all. Nifo, in the meantime, takes away that fastest lap once again away from Ticey and for themselves, and a 3.1 second gap. Nifo might actually get this on track. Zingy doing a phenomenal job. Heichler has driven phenomenally. We've got Peanuts in P3 looking for their best result possibly ever around Silverstone. Pursoon holds on to that P4 on track at the moment, but they've got a hunting and hungry Nifojan who's trying to make it all count in these final stages, and they might be able to get it on track. I say that, it's very real. It is very real. That is really not looking good for Pursoon, who is losing the car left, right and centre. I really don't understand what's going on with these tyres, but there is the Mercedes right behind. A brilliant effort. And it might even be a puncture here for Zingy, surely. It's not going to be a puncture. And they've managed to get the job done. It's going to be Zingy who slows down the car at the end. to be victorious once again in LSI. Zingy wins the British Grand Prix and wins the final race of the season. Heichler takes a phenomenal P2. Peanuts in P3. Pursoon is trying to hold on. Will Nifo get there? It doesn't matter. They'll get it on time penalties. I am pretty sure they're pushing to the absolute limit. Will they go for the inside line? Will they go for the inside line? They will go for it. They're going to get there. There's contact across the line. Nifo is the winner of season 11. The championship goes to them. Mercedes get the double. Absolutely incredible stuff right here. Mercedes on top once again since Zingy drove for the team a few seasons ago. That was a bit difficult at the end for those guys, but it's all secured, and I'm sure these guys aren't going to mind after all of that. That is Ticey getting the fastest lap and the final time of asking. Tom Robb, Jericho Willis, JJ in P9 looking maybe for a fastest lap attempt here to take it away and towards McLaren if they can do so. Disconnected was Nabil, and that is one hell of a drive from the top three. I will say that now. A brilliant effort from Zingy, Heichler and Peanuts to make these tyres last. Absolutely awesome stuff right here. But this is the man to watch, and he's done it finally in LSI, joining all those seasons ago, working hard, missing out, but finally they are the man, and they will be the reigning champion going into next season. Absolutely incredible. Both contenders drove a phenomenal season. The dedication, the efforts, the emotions that they've put in to this championship. One of them has to win in the end, and that has been Nifojan. For the first time ever, Nifojan will be an LSI F1 World Drivers' Champion. That's Zingy taking the victory. Heichler in P2, Peanuts in P3. Nifo is champion with P4. Pursoon, Ticey, Tom Robb, Jericho Willis, JJ getting the fastest lap. Disconnecting is Nabil, and DNFing is Charlie and Taz Coulsman in the end. The race director is on your screen now, just in case, as we always do, of course. And we'll get the pit stop section as well, just to make sure we know everything is there. An absolutely incredible season. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. If you're on the full race replay, we'll see you next time. And if you are, of course, on the live stream, we'll see you in a minute for the post-race interviews. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you in a bit.